Good morning, as I said, and thank you for your presence here today. And also, welcome to all of those that are following us on the YouTube channel. My name is Maria Paricio Arnain. I'm a veterinary, and I work for Big Cham for Europa, which is a company based in Segovia, and we have several activities that I will explain now. My role is head of department for digital transformation, and within this project, Life Adapt, to which our company belongs to, the consortium that has developed this project. Our role was developing a mobile app for the management of extensive animal farming. In the past 20 years of activity of our company, we have worked in the digitalization process, and we also have a very renowned R&D department, and we have been working mostly with intensive agriculture, but we work with whoever requires our services. We have been working in production, profitability, and now we are very proud to be able to work with extensive agriculture and get to know this your sector. So I will explain now what we have done in more detail. This is the structure of my presentation. I will explain a bit what the digitalization means, the results of the project, of the Live Adapt project, and the presentation then of the panelists, which is probably the most interesting part. What does digitalization mean? If we look up the word on the dictionary, one of the definitions we could find is a process that consists in integrating and applying new technologies to all sectors that need to change their operational modes. It is very important to differentiate innovation and digitalization. Innovation is a previous step, whereas digitalization is a tool we can use to implement our innovation objective. But digitalization also needs to be innovative. Nowadays it's everyone's reach, but not everyone does it in the correct way. It can be required by single individuals, companies, or institutions. Some think that having a web page is already a way to digitalize the company. We can also, it's not only that, we can also digitalize processes, the digitalization of business models and process digitalization. Some authors consider that digitalization represents the fourth industrial revolution, and it is a driver of social change as it affects the whole of society. I think it is a challenge and an opportunity for companies within the spectrum of digitalization. This is what we have developed. We have developed a mobile application and also a sustainability calculator, and also a calculator for the risk of parasites infection. I'll start with the two applications and the climatic sustainability calculator, which consists of a questionnaire, and I use the opportunity to draw your attention to a leaflet that you can find in the materials that you have received. In this leaflet, you can see here QR codes. In this leaflet that has as a title SOST Klima, and I invite you to access this QR code, both of the SOST Klima and the Live Smart application. We have just started as a pilot project, so as the more farms we get to answer to this questionnaire, the better. So I hope you'll contribute and tell us if you think it is useful and if it must be changed and to make it better. So these two calculators, the climatic sustainability and the parasite infection risk, consists of a questionnaire that will yield a score that will allow you to compare your farm with other farms, and it's always useful to compare with other farms. And this application consists in the following. Once you know where the farm is located, they'll ask you the GPS coordinates, the meteorological features. We don't need to introduce any specific data because my colleagues at the R&D, at the development department, automatically, once you introduce your location, the system will connect to the meteorological agency station nearest to you, and then you'll have to introduce the data concerning your census data, how many, the head count of your herd, and all the other features of your farm. So you need to introduce those data, features of the farm. The meteorological data is introduced automatically, and the census data is the only other data that the user needs to introduce. If you want to participate in the pilot project, maybe to us it seems very easy, but it is not so straightforward, so maybe we can improve it. So once you get to the main panel, you can find all the information that you can input: census, management, reproduction. Of course, I can't get into the details of the application because I'm not an expert in it, and Noelia knows much more about it. I'll just show you 3 screenshots. One is this first one is concerning management. We'll just write down the dates, reproduction, weaning, anti-parasite treatments, and we'll get a forecast, a projection, to see whether my farm has all the features that are required for a farm of these features. Sorry, all the requirements that are needed for a farm with these features. So the application will tell you whether your farm is underutilized or overutilized. And this is idea that we wanted to develop within this Live Adapt project to contribute to the project. And then we have also added, this is like kind of a bonus track that we have added that helps you to manage your calendar. For example, on this certain date I need to go to the veterinary, on this other date I need to do my anti-parasite treatment. And you can also take photos. Yesterday, for example, we have seen many photos that were shown from farms from this and other areas, so it's important to have a graphic record with recording the date and some comments about the photo and when it was taken. So this is the presentation of the results of the project concerning the digitalization, and now I'm going to give the floor to the four panelists. José Manuel Inchaurrandieta, I hope I've pronounced your last name correctly. He comes from INTIA, is the company INTIA. Then Álvaro Barrera from Ecovalia will talk about responsible consumption. Then Fernando Maria Vicente will talk about blockchain, a technology strategy for building trust and confidence. Finally, the representative of Ecologistas en Acción will talk about degrowth and digitalization and macro farms facing the global crisis. So we have representatives of all views, so I think that we'll have a good debate at the end. I'd ask you to ask very specific questions addressed to one of the panelists and not general comments, because we would like to give priority to questions. And then we'll have a coffee break and we can discuss there later.
Bueno, buenos días, gracias por la invitación.
Good morning, thank you for the invitation. I come from INTIA, which is a public company of the regional government of Navarra that works mainly on advising and technology transfer to the members of the association or the company. I will focus on extensive farming. And talking about business models, of course it is necessary to think in profitability. And of course, one of the strategies to improve profitability is to improve productivity. And here you can see data concerning, well, I forgot to say that INTIA, for this technology transfer, collects data from about 200 milk-producing animal farms, extensive animal farms, to get to carry out those types of analysis. We can see here there's been an increase of from 300,000 liters to about 1 million liters, almost 1 million liters, 1.5 million liters, which is enormous. And as a result, external workforce has had to be hired. In green you can see fodder that has increased at the same pace as the increase in production of milk. These are data that concern the whole of the region of Navarra. So if the average production has gone from 90,000 liters to almost 2,000 million liters, this is the evolution between 91 and the current date. Now we need to see what the evolution is.
Bien, efectivamente, consecuencia.
So there is a process of intensification. This is the example concerning meat-producing sheep farms.
We have a line that shows the kilograms of lamb per sheep in this period of time. And it's not a growing curve, it's a slightly decreasing curve. And this is not because sheep produce fewer lambs per sheep. It's because lighter lambs are sold. In previous years, the production of older sheep, of older lambs, was more important, but now younger sheep are sold. What was mentioned, or what was proposed here, is that there has been an improvement in the dimension. If productivity cannot be increased, I increase the number of sheep so I can sell more lambs. But there's a moment where this increase stops. There's a cap, which is 2021. Of course, what happened there? The disconnection of the support. The farmers realized that having sheep and hiring shepherds to keep more animals didn't make sense if the support from the CAP wasn't going to come. It was the uncoupling. The orange curve is the meat curve. We talked about productivity, about dimension. Let's talk about prices. Something was already said. That orange line that is almost that is covered by meat is the price of male animals in this period of time. There's a slightly growing curve, and if we there's lots of inflation. If we bear into account the inflation, we see that what is being made is less than half. So it seems like prices are not a working line or a strategy that can give us this feasibility, this financial feasibility. And here we have different species, dairy cows, meat cows, and same thing with sheep. And then we have the red line, which is production costs. Here we have two main messages. One is that sales don't cover production costs. This has been mentioned time and over again, especially in meat. Not even 65% of production costs are being covered, but there are subsidies, especially in meat, that allow most farms, average farms, to cover production costs. But the sad thing is that this requires subsidies of around 40% that are decoupled. We talked about different species, but milk sheep is something very interesting in my region. I'm talking about my region, Navarra, because when we talk about business models, we talked about generational turnover. What are young people doing? What type of farms are they favoring? For example, in Navarra, in these last years, something interesting is that 1/4 of the farms are milk sheep, and 1/4 are making cheese and selling cheese directly. And why is this happening? Well, here we have something very important to have feasible farms, especially when you don't inherit the farm. The resources that are necessary should be as low as possible. So here I have 5 ideas of resources: soil, investment, subsidies, if to be feasible, and the volume to be feasible, and the feed that has to be, or the inputs that need to be bought to guarantee the feasibility. The yellow chart is milk cows. It requires many infrastructure. The 2 red lines are meat, sheep and cows. You don't need that many inputs, but you really need lots of land, and you need lots of soil to have that feasibility. The green, light green line, and here we differentiate when it comes to milk, sheep, intensive and extensive practices. Intensive, what we see is that green circle that we have in the center is the less demanding one, is sheep, milk sheep for processing the product and doing direct sales. It's less demanding, and this is why many young people are seeing dairy sheep farms as the main possibility. So what these farmers do with direct sales is to position themselves in a better situation. And the third goal of the strategic goals of the CAP is to balance the power in the food chain. Obviously, we're all aware that this is a main challenge, and when we talk about balancing this challenge, in the report published by the Commission, what is mentioned are 3 main aspects: having differentiated quality brands or labels, having organic production, Alvaro's going to talk about this, and short circuits and direct sales. If we move to the first part, origin denominations, we have 2 meat and 2 meat and 2 cheese labels, origin denominations. "65% of the populations know the organic, are aware of these organic labels, but when it comes to origin denominations, there's not that much familiarity. The problem of local breeds is that we have 16 regional brands in Spain. Each regional government is defending their own labels, and then we have the sustainability, the from the farm to the fork strategy. This strategy from farm to fork, is requiring the sustainability level. Traditional products are very important for consumers, but some people say that for schools what they want are short circuit products. When you ask consumers, they say that their priority is buying local. That's very interesting. And here we have a curve here where they compare something. Before I was talking about the inflation and the prices. The black line is the IPC from 2021, and then we have commodity milk without any origin denomination. The green line is milk sold with origin denomination, is 118% over the price, and the blue line are the people who are doing direct sales. If IPC changed 128%, they are selling their cheese 127%. They're the only ones, the ones doing direct sales, that are able to go beyond inflation. I'm going to give some examples. Arzaigasta, the cheese in Navarra. Why was it a successful case? Because there was an association that since the 80s included 128 shepherds, and this association supported them and helped them improve their quality. We have to thank these shepherds because they showed us how they are models that can veer from intensification, that can remain extensive and achieve generational turnover. And something happens with meat cows. Farmers were wondering how they could keep working and respect the soil. Well, they got together and they were able to sell their products. And pigs, for example, in Navarra, pigs used to be only intensive, and there has been this initiative. It's an initiative that comes from the French Basque Country. That was they recovered an endangered species, an endangered breed, and they started breeding them in an extensive product. And then we have systems like dairy cows, and we see that the feed that is used is lower. So we see how this can be profitable. And always we're talking about direct sales and differentiation of the products. And to wrap up, I'm going to tell you about two products that are very interesting. We have Ecoalde. It was created 3 years ago. 54 producers got together to market their products, organic products. 14 of these producers were farmers. School cafeterias, by law, are demanding an increasing number of local products, and farmers would have a hard time supplying those products by themselves. So they created this cooperative, and they are supplying their products to school cafeterias. And then we have Landare, that's a consumer organization with 3,500 consumers in Pamplona, 4.5 million turnover, and all the meat comes from local organic producers, and of course extensive production.
Perfecto. Bueno, pues buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. I want to greet my colleagues, and I want to thank the organizers of this Life Adapt project, and of course the University of Córdoba. I still feel at home here because I'm an alumni, and because I am part of the Ecoalea Clemente Mata organic production chair. And I want to greet members from Ecoalea, farmers, and former colleagues. So I absolutely feel at home. This said, I want to mention that I greeted the members of this panel, and I want to say that Juanma set the path for what I want to say, and all the colleagues have really set the tone of what I wanted to mention. I had a presentation, and I don't think I'm going to use many of the slides that I had prepared. I'm just going to leave this one, and if I need anything else, I will bring it for you to have it as support. Ecovalia is the Spanish Organic Production Federation. We are the Spanish Agrovalle. Javier Ferreira and I are very good friends, and we also have to deal with the ministry. We work for organic production. So when I was invited to come to this Congress, I was absolutely delighted. Dissemination is key, and thanks to Maria's coordination, we tried to do something dynamic. It's not the first time or the last time that I'm in panels with farmers where we have our own heart. I started working in the world of organic production because of organic farming. Now we see that well, I have to focus a lot on organic vegetables, but I come from the world of farming, of animal farming. I want to say that organic production is in fashion. Fashions. Some people say that we're in fashion. Fashions come and go, but organic production is not a fashion. It's something that's regulated in the whole European Union, and I want to give you some support, because there's always time to give up, but we have heard about mobile slaughterhouses, generational turnover. It is possible, yes we can, and I want to shed some light on all of this. First, I want to say that I feel privileged, and we are privileged, because in the agri-food system, the work and effort of many industrial farming makes the work of organic farmers more valued. Why? Well, because industrial farmers made organic farmers be the preferred food system. Why? Because it's regulated in the whole European Union. There are 440 million Europeans who are talking about organic production. 27 member countries are implementing it, and in the whole world you hear about dollars, yens, and euro. We talk about organic production in the European regulation. Your organic production, is it something real? Well, 126 billion dollars turnover are the result of organic production. We're talking about 65 million hectares. Is that a lot or is that a little? I get lost with euro because I used to think in pesetas, so I have a hard time getting lost in billions. In Spain, 10 years ago, we were spending 12 euro per person per year, and now the expenditure is 65 per person per year. Compared to other places, we are newcomers, but we have come a long way. First, I'm going to talk about organic production in general, and then I'm going to move to organic extensive farming. I am representing this sector thanks to a team that is backing me. Organic production beyond figures is growing continuously in terms of consumption and in terms of surface. In the last 5 years, there's been a growth of 20% because, as Guillermo was saying, there are public policies that are supporting this. And Irene and Lorena said it, that we have to incentivize things. We have to see whether public policies are adding or taking away. They have to improve. I was talking to some colleagues, and we have some questions for them. This is here. We have 60 operators in Spain. But let's focus. Adaptability to climate change and adaptability to the situation. In a situation where we have a crisis, this started as an energy crisis, and then we have a trust crisis, and then we have inflation. How can this help develop the organic production? If we're not able to, we have to be really, really clumsy to not transmit the idea that we are more important now than ever. After COVID, everyone was applauding us. And what did this translate into? We need to make people reflect. This should be food for thought. This is a model that is working for us, the organic production, agriculture production and animal farming production. There are many situations that we can learn from. We all know that we are doing things well because they're attacking us. They used to look down on us, but now we are being attacked. Is the problem in the world productivity or distribution? Isn't the problem in the world the last loss of farms. Every time we see a journalist, we have to say that our system is productive, is profitable, and it's climate friendly. And with the climate change that we have, the fossil fuel dependence is terrible. We have heard about local consumption, and this is the answer. We have the answer. Let's talk about consumption. Let's talk about needs. What do we have to do? Organic production meets requirements in terms of labeling and packaging. What's the problem? Confusion. I was doing my groceries with my children the other day, and there were some organic eggs, and they had a big label, and next to them there were some eggs on code 2 with code 2 that were talking about that were labeled with a big animal welfare label. We have to invest in. We have lots of subsidies. When we were able to change the organic production regulations, is because we abandoned the national logos to have our single logo. When the consumption started growing is when we changed the logo and started having one single logo to make things easier. One brand. What is extensive livestock? If we made a survey here, probably no two people would agree on what extensive livestock is. We have had a brand crisis. And what is extensive livestock? Sometimes regulations, like in the case of Iberian products, are labeled in such a way that there were some new regulations for Iberian products, but that was just a whitewashing for people who have their animals in feedlots. So we have to think about labels. There was this noise about when there was this controversy about meat consumptions. People who are vegetarian, why are they vegetarian? Because animal farmers are backwards. We have one cow per 10 soccer fields. Do vegetarians know this when they think that we are damaging the environment? They don't. This is a reality that we have to convey. Ecovalia in 23 and 2024 has a European action plan of 1.6 million euro. We created this action plan together with Portugal to promote Europe, to promote our work. Let's do it. Let's make the plan, the action plan, 30% of the action plan should go to research in sustainable products. And we're going to follow up this. We have to respect this European legislation. In our organic production chair, we created an initiative, and that's what changed the European regulation. We carried out a climate change study, and this is the origin of the Green Compact in the European Union. So, congrats. The challenge is here, and count on us. I really hope that I could encourage you, and let's have a fruitful discussion right now.
Buenos días. En primer lugar,
Good morning. I'd like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me. And I'd like to say a few words about what I think are the main problems with livestock farming, and also some possible propose some possible solutions. When we talk about extensive livestock farming, we're always talking about Cinderella that goes to the party, and all the factors related with the ecosystem services are stressed and emphasized, but when the party is over, then Cinderella goes back to reality. This is the average salary of the in the Spanish economy, and then you get next to it, you find different profitability indicators according to the size of the farm. Here we can see there is a clear unbalance and very low profitability. And so we have only two options. Either we intensify or we abandon the activity. This is pretty simple. We have the two extremes of the value chain, consumers and producers, and there is a complete lack of communication between the two. From the animal farm comes out a live animal, and then the consumer buys a piece of meat in the restaurant or in the supermarket. The consumer knows strictly nothing about the meat, where it comes from, and the consumer and the producer doesn't know where his or her meat will be sold. This value chain is subject to many different forces. First of all, the market. We don't have to forget that this meat is marketed on international markets, and this represents a downward pressure to keep prices lower. So there will be more value added for products that are not really meat, but that are meat derived. And in a few years, we'll probably also get on the market meat that has been produced from germ cells in a factory. Then we have a social demand that is demanding sustainability criteria. We have different factors. First of all, the Ministry of Consumption in Spain is suggesting we should not eat meat. Then we have a company like the company that is part of Real Madrid group that is marketing meat that comes from laboratory. It's produced in laboratories. One of the recommendations of the ministry to prevent or mitigate climate change is to reduce the consumption of meat, and this is can be found on an app that is sponsored by Santander Bank. So how is the information organized? There's no communication between all those different steps in the value chain. And the public administration doesn't consider information as a public asset and doesn't make it available for livestock farmers. Can we break this scheme? Yes, we can. If this linear system is transformed in a network in which all the operators of the value chain are networked. Consumers, producers, restaurants, and all the operators can input and collect data from the system. We could integrate also data from calculators from like the ones that Maria has mentioned. Today this is possible. There is a technology for it. It is called blockchain technology. Apparently it is very complex. It's part of information technology, and it works as the master's book of accounting master's book. This information is constantly updated and preserved in blocks that are safeguarded. This methodology allows us to access information in the way I've explained before. And it would also have a new element. It would allow for smart contracts, like what we've been mentioning this morning concerning the value chain legislation, the implementation of the current legislation in force. Imagine you're going to a restaurant, and when you order a piece of meat, they'll show you a QR code, and you'll scan this code with your mobile phone, and the app will show you an image of the farm from where this animal came from. This was an image from back when it rained. And then you get information like this. Data concerning the farm, features of this animal, breed, the way it has been slaughtered, and then indicators of animal well-being and sustainability. And all this data reaches the consumer, who decides if he is interested in this piece of meat or not. It could even decide whether he or she wants to contribute to this, donate funds to this farm. Is this a utopia? This is a case that was developed in Australia. Australia is the largest meat exporter. Main markets for Australia used to be Japan and the United States. A few years ago, it started to export to China as well. But Australian meat is high quality meat, and they have noticed that a lot of the meat that was marketed in China was not good quality, so they needed to differentiate, and they've initiated this blockchain project a few years ago. This was to avoid frauds, and nowadays this initiative covers 45 million animal farms, 27 million head of cattle, and 200,000 consumers. Right now they have a system whereby you can pay automatically through this system, and here you can see the general scheme of the Australian blockchain project. Here you can see all the agents that have been registered on the system, the transport means, and how meat travels from the producer to the consumers. And just to wrap up, I'd like to say that extensive agriculture can only survive if it is profitable. If it is not, it will disappear. And just in general terms, if we don't allow extensive animal farming to be profitable, we'll soon see investment funds arrive in the regions, in the southwestern regions of Spain.
Vale. Bueno, pues buenos días.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm going to finish off this panel. Thank you for the invitation to come here and discuss a bit the model and talking about the objectives and the goals of this project. That is the extensive animal farming model and how it should be restructured. I will talk about different models that are based on the intensive animal farming model that is the main cause of all the problems we're going through in this sector. I'll talk about the role of the industrial food sector. This is in program of this is the result of a clear program that is being implemented to make the sector more industrialized. We talk a lot about climate change, and we should do it. It is a very important issue, but we should be aware that we're facing a much deeper crisis with different components of different nature. We're exceeding many limits, not only in relation to climate, but also soil fertility, water, biodiversity loss. All those elements are questioning the possibility of continuity of the life supporting systems of the biosphere. I've updated this presentation yesterday, but climate change, we could say, is just a symptom of a general problem, which is a capitalist society that is destroying the planet and is making us face different types of crises, energy crisis, but also raw material crisis, or the huge crisis that is more and more visible, but is linked with the loss of biodiversity. 60% of invertebrate species have disappeared in the past decade. So this is the result of a link between the development model that requires that is based on continuous growth of energy consumption. We have a series of problems like the phosphorus depletion. We can see here how the rocks from which we extract phosphorus are being depleted. We are also facing the loss of fertility. In these processes of exceeding the limits of the planet, the industrial food system that has been developed since the 60s, that is mainly aiming at an increase of profits, and if we go and read the research literature in Spain, we can discuss the ecological footprint, and we can see that since the middle of the 20th century, the ecological footprint has literally exploded. going from a situation in which we're capturing the energy from the sun and transforming it into food. That is what food production implies. We've gone to a situation of deficit, like you can see as the results of the studies of Manuel Garcia Molina. So agriculture has become, and animal farming has become, a destructive activity. We cannot avoid talking about energy when we talk about food production. Actually, this system has become very inefficient because we're consuming energy for many things: to produce inputs, to transport, for machinery, for distribution of food products. So to produce 1 unit of energy, we're using 6 energy units. And the inputs come through fossil fuel, animal feed, and this is the industrial model that is generating this inefficiency. And on the other hand, if we think of the emissions of the agro-food sector, in 2008 it was already reaching 268 tons of emissions. This is a completely unsustainable model. I'm not getting into details, but there's been a very significant increase of macro farms that is limiting profitability of the sector, because 2/3 of the profits of the sector come from these macro farms. We were talking about investment funds before, and we don't need to wait for them. They're here already. We already have 30 investment funds investing in our area in the agricultural sector. Not to mention colonial relations between South and North. So, in view of this diagnosis, we have this digitalization program that suggests that the whole sector should be condensed in 3 sectors. The first would be the productive areas, then technology innovation to optimize energy use, and then the third chapter would be the blockchain technology. In biometrics, we would have sensors of all type, of the quality of feeding, of animal feed. This is a general trend in big data collection. We have many publications, academic publications on this issue. This is the package that is being offered by this precision agricultural proposal. We have big players like Deloitte that are geared to offer services to intensive animal farming companies, and they're prepared to give solutions to problems that are not problems that are very urgent for the extensive livestock farming sector. For example, trust. If I am eating meat from the producers that come from my area, I don't have this trust issue like I would have if I export meat to China. This is a way to channel public funding to problems that are not ours, that don't belong to the extensive sector. So it's the mechanization and robotization of systems, which means probably that we'll have to lose work force and will probably outsource certain services and relocate them to other countries, low-cost countries. These proposals are always based on on the basis that we will continue with this model and that give us a solution to the problem of lack of trust that is not a feature of extensive local livestock systems. And they will allow for the creation of new business niches that will take away resources from the real problems that local producers face. This involves the expansion of extractivism and Internet is a network of servers and that are energy consuming as well, and in 2020 we can predict that the Internet services will make up for a large part of our emissions as far as energy consumption. So if we have to face this dynamics, I think that our proposal should be to a proposal that go in the direction of degrowth, and for that we need to build a different economy. That different economy needs to put an emphasis on the primary sector and should go back to a productive logic that is a logic in which we should guarantee that we have an efficient productive system to decouple well-being from profitability. So degrowth also implies de-digitalize processes and favor dynamics like the ones that are promoted by Ganaderas en Red and other organizations.
¿Se oye? Ahora. Julio, necesito que me digas cuánto tiempo tenemos para...
How long do we have for the debate? Because I'm kind of lost with times.
Perfecto. Pues lo primero de todo, muchas gracias a...
Thank you very much to the 4 panelists. And let's see if we have any questions from the floor. And there may be questions in the chat. It seems like there's a question here from the floor, 2 questions from the floor. Since the whole panel was about digitalization and there were very different positions, I'm gonna give my vision as a farmer. I agree with both sides because as a farmer we need data. It is basic in this situation that we have where there are more and more companies. There's an increasing number of large companies, as it has been said, that are there trying to put those huge marketing signs that Alvaro was talking about. So we have to try to fight them with their own weapons. We have our own weapons, as he said, as Adrian said. So we have to fight with our own weapons, but we also have to use those technologies. And farmers need it. We need to do the maths. We need data, because often we complain that the external requirements are there and that we're being affected by these factors, outside factors, but we need our farms to be profitable. In small farms, we know whether the pasture that we have is enough for our cows, but even at that, we need the facts. We need the data and see how we can change. Where I'm spending the money in feed, do I need to have fewer animals for some time and not spend so much in feed? We need data. But it's true. Who those technologies are in the hand of who? It's at the end of the day, it's going to be the large company who are going to have those facts. And I'm scared that the blockchain will be like those color scales, like the nutritional score. I'm kind of scared that blockchain will end up being that. The last sentence you said, that consumers are going to say, well, with this in hand, will I buy this? Yes or no? We need to guarantee that this blockchain doesn't end up being Nutri-Score. It has to be data that gives information to the consumer to decide whether or not to buy. Because if this isn't done carefully, we will be in the hands of those large companies, like what is happening in many sectors. For example, the Iberian pigs regulation. It's the industrial sector that got in there to be able to sell their pigs as if they were a different thing. I'm in favor of technology, but farmers, we need to use it very wisely. I'm gonna scan the QR code because I want to contribute, but we need to be really careful how we use the technology, because at the end of the day, Adrian, the situation is there. Whether we want it or not, that technology is there. And if we don't want them to use it wrongly, farmers, small-scale farmers, have to be there to say, hey, we want to do this way. I think she's referring, she's alluding to what has been said. About what you said, it is true that technology can go against and in favor of people, and what is clear is that technology is there and it's not going to go back unless this crisis makes all systems collapse. In Spain, blockchain is developing really fast in the pig sector because it's the most industrialized one. It's also true that when it comes to dairy cows and non-dairy cows, there's going to be a blockchain implemented from the industry that is going to damage and harm farmers. We're working on a blockchain with European funds, and it was a farming organization that requested this work to be done. The University of Extremadura worked did the part of the emissions. The University of León worked on the animal welfare indicators, and the the Salamanca University did the blockchain part. And a feed company also did their work. There were two cooperatives that participated, one in Salamanca and another one from Extremadura. The project was completed 1 year ago, and that blockchain project was farmer-centered. It included industry data, but it was focused on farmers and consumers. 2 months ago, I thought that it was dead, that the project was dead. and it had received 600,000 in subsidies. And I just realized that it's not dead, it's in its deathbed. Why? Because there is a large consulting company that inquired about the project. There are two options. We either do the project that we had, or they will do it on their own. I don't know what will happen. I'm gonna get the partners together, and if this project didn't make it through, it's because the partner that had to put in contact the product, the production of meat with the commercialization didn't do its work. If that had happened, the project would be working. There were errors in the mistake because the administration didn't provide the correct data. So we had to look for a system during the COVID pandemic. But after carrying out the whole process, we see that data is the hardest part for a farmer, and this can be automated. Just by allowing farmers to input the data to the module, that would solve the problem. Data can also be captured automatically. What is clear is that if this blockchain is a failure, the next blockchain will be an industrial blockchain. We're gonna give the floor to someone else. I'm a farmer too, and I'm really interested in blockchain because I'm very interested in traceability. I come from the pharmaceutical world, and I know that traceability is very important. When we talk about blockchain, does it always have to be like high level with broad frameworks, or can blockchain start looking at a few specific points? For example, you're saying that we have the farmer and all the way to the end, but can this be done in parts? Yeah, but if we do it in parts, we will have a part traceability, and what we're interested in is going from the farmer to the end consumer. In this project, we had farmers, the feed, a slaughterhouse that belonged to a co-op that had stores. I can't interpret because the speaker is not using a microphone. The advantage of this is that everything can get interconnected. It's like when we do Photoshop, we start adding layers, and all those layers can get connected. But what I am saying is that there's a project and that it may die. This project can integrate anyone. The advantage of blockchain is that the information is not included in a database that belongs to a company. Is that the information is replicated in 2, 4, or 5,000 nodes or hubs, and each node or hub includes all the information. Then the access to the information depends on the access privilege. If meat industry, largest slaughterhouse in Spain, or an investment funds, does this, it's going to keep all the information access, and they will just allow the rest of the stakeholders to access part of it. So the design is where freedom is, because if measures are not taken, this means we'll just leave crumbs for other parts. But that's already there. Investment funds are already in the agri-food sector, and as of today, I know that there's a large investment fund trying to get installed in the west of the Iberian Peninsula to raise meat cows. right now is trying to get established in Salamanca. It's talking about environment, rural development. When you talk about environment and rural development, you can use those words, and it's easy to sell, and it's trying to get established in Salamanca or Extremadura. I was very shocked by one of the graphs that you showed about how there is a model that was fully independent from all the different factors that can influence profitability, and I would like you to tell us a little more about up to what extent this is something that could be made more widespread or more general when it comes to extensive farming. In this calculation, what I did was to analyze what resources, and also including the marketing, what resources are necessary for a work unit to have the reference sales that we are looking for when it comes to having salary equivalents. So there are models that are more demanding and models that are smaller. And we discovered that, inverted commas, thanks to many years of management, because there were extensive farmers who decided that their production system to be the one that they always had, connecting their production to processing and sales. For example, blockchain. Okay, blockchain can be good, but we need to improve efficiency, we need to improve our practices, but we need to analyze the systems. Because at the end of the day, we may be incredibly efficient in a productive system, but if it's a productive system that gives us prices that are half of than 10 years ago, and then production can't be improved anymore, and we're depending on subsidies, well, that's why when we talk about blockchain, if the chains are going to be as long as they are in the traditional system, is blockchain going to improve the added value of what farmers can make? I'm sure that it can facilitate the exports of productions like pigs to China, but I really doubt that a small extensive farmer, I really doubt that they will be able to make more from their products. And to answer your question, can this model be replicated? Well, I was talking about meat cows. There's this reinvented extensification of other animals. For example, in where we live, some young farmers are starting to farm extensive pigs with this breed, and they would have never been able to afford a dairy or a meat cow business. And I'm giving these examples because this marketing part, even if it's direct sales, this requires for associations, co-ops, and alliances with consumers for consumers to get these products. In our consumers association, we always say that 65% of what you are paying goes to the farmer. There's no blockchain. Sorry, 75% of what you pay for a product goes to the farmer, and they set the price. So how do we do it? We make circuits as short as possible. My doubt is whether blockchain is going to do anything to improve the prices and the added value for farmers themselves. There's another question here. Two questions. My question is in line with what Irene de Miguel said in her presentation. Juanma, do you have the idea that in Navarra, the administration, the regional government, is facilitating the arrival of young people and generational turnover and the appearance of new businesses? Well, yes and no. I mean, there's room for improvement. There could be less, fewer barriers, for example, for small slaughterhouses. That's a problem in Navarra. Animal health problems. Public health is very, very restrictive, and they want to have zero problems. So anything that is small units, that involves small units, for them is an increase in risk. So there's much room for improvement. But for example, finally, on the other hand, the direct sales law that was approved in 2010 is going to be amended. It was the first one that passed in Spain. It was pretty chaotic, pretty crazy, and now it's going to be amended, and we're going to have a direct sales law that may be more interested for producers who want to shorten their circuit and for the added value to stay there between the producers and the consumers. And I think this law is going to help in this sense. India is a company that historically had focused on giving advice in production. It has a small unit to advise when it comes to food processing and direct sales. So there are small steps being taken. Support to young people, well, that really depends on the production system. The subsidies in Navarra are very similar to the ones given in other regional governments in other regions. They're not especially high or especially low, and of course there's room for improvement. When it comes to support to young people, we're pretty much getting what comes from Europe. There's another question here, Mireia.
Sí. Bueno, la pregunta también está inspirada en una de las...
My question concerns one of the graphs that Juanma showed, where you can see clearly that sustainability and the future of livestock farming is in the hands of public funding and support. Given the fact that these programs, these support programs, are defined and designed by public administration and the European institutions, so it is essential to work on European policymaking. And since the great industrial lobby that tries to promote blockchain and other technologies, this lobby is much stronger than the little livestock farming lobby, we are at a loss. We won't be able to influence the policy making. So there is a perverse mechanism that doesn't let us get out of that loop. Then Juanma explained this project in Navarra, where there was this capacity to come together, join forces, and defend the products. In Extremadura, we don't have this experience. We have great difficulties in articulating the sector. So my question is, what do you think are the keys that have made it possible for people to join forces, for pastoralists to join forces and make pressure on the administration? Well, I think this is not a simple question. There are places where it works and places where it doesn't. I think that Navarra is a model that should be followed. It is interesting. It is an initiative that came from the pastoralist sector. India helped in the milk producing livestock, helped the milk producing sector, but then we were asked to support them in other initiatives. And this project has proven it is effective to join forces and generate also a better, a more prestigious, give the sector more prestige and self-esteem. Ecoalde, I think, is a very interesting project that works with the school canteens, but behind that there is a regional government act that promotes public procurement, and that is why local producers get their act together to provide school canteens with their products. The INTIA, the Regional Council for Organic Production, got together and created a hub for those products. And now small organic shops also want to differentiate. So EcoAlde is a very interesting project. The initiative came from those two forces that joined together, and it has only been working for 3 years, but let's hope it will continue. We still have only 3 minutes, and then Adrian wants to make a comment. Can you hear me? Yes. Going back to this model in which we saw this kind of spider web model, all this depends on food that enters the market, but the percentage is very small. We should defend this model, but this is not going to substitute the food needs of society. It will have to coexist with other models. Normally, grazed land is a very limited percentage, and then we have the rest of the territory that will have to be used by a different type of livestock farming that will be subsidized, and we'll keep funding this sector. When I've seen these 5 models, they all make sense. They'll have to coexist, and each model will have to continue working as it did. For example, I'll give you an example in Extremadura of direct sales. The needs are being covered by just a couple of producers. Of course, if we just stick to this model, there will only be a few producers that will be able to survive, but we won't be able to manage the whole territory. Some will need the blockchain technology to access the market, and some will stick to their model and continue producing for local consumers. Just a piece of information: the cheese that is sold by the 25 livestock herders is about 600,000 kilos. It is a very relevant amount within the denomination de controlled origin certification, and they're based on communal pasture lands. It is an extensive system, but it is based on shared pastures. I'd like to make a comment about what has been said before, the whole debate about digitalization. Well, we shouldn't think that since it's there we can't question it, because we're in a system in which we're all based on private mobility, so there are many things that we should start to question. Just beyond our personal experience, we should understand that there is a large investment plan that is at stake, and that is a plan that is not aimed at transforming the system, which is the main cause of the problem. Capitalism is able to reinvent itself but it will not touch upon the main issues and problems of the sector, which is regenerational turnover, access to the land, but it will lead to intensification, indebtedness, and access, and it will channel a lot of public funding that is there. If large technological companies are the largest companies, it is not just because they provide an email service, because they are getting huge profits with our data. So we should understand that the intrusion in so many aspects of our lives is not aimed at improving our lives, but it is aimed at a big business making money out of it. So we should understand this in a global context. We are here in a conference in which we're talking about extensive livestock farming and climate change, so we should worry about the type of model we want to build. The unsustainability of the current model is rooted in the structural features of the system. And this is a system that is growing with no control, and it is increasing its energy use in a very uncritical environment. So then everyone can take his own decision. But what I'm saying, I'm not referring to you in particular, Monte. I'm just saying that there has been a process in which we have gone through intensification, more energy consumption, that was not necessarily positive. Now Monte is making a comment without microphone, so we won't be able to interpret it. We are in a new phase of reindustrialization of the food production. This fourth industrial revolution that has been defined, and in this context, new niches are being sought that are trying to give a solution to problems that are problems related with the industrial system. For example, the biometrics related with the health issues of animals are biometrics that are designed by the industry based on the fact that industrial system will persist, that we will continue to increase the meat consumption. And I think this is a completely secondary issue. We should not channel public funding to issues that are not so urgent. Well, Adrian and I share the microphone, but we don't share our views. I will just invite you to continue promoting projects that will allow you to be more visible. As you said, Adrian, if I can, you said, if I can continue eating the meat from the local producers, I don't have this problem, but many times you don't even know there is a local producer. So why not make the most of this technology to make yourself known and to increase your visibility even in the local markets?